They took my 6-year-old child to the playground and left her there. My mom said, "It'll toughen her up." I didn't yell. I made one quiet call to their landlord. Within hours, they were handed eviction notices. My family left red-faced and humbled. I just cuddled my daughter and said, "Lesson learned." But the next day, my parents knocked on my door at 6 a.m. I opened the door and saw them. I nearly blacked out when my mother said it. They came back without Isla, my 6-year-old daughter. My mother and sister walked into Jake's backyard with paper plates in their hands like nothing was wrong, like they hadn't just abandoned a child. People were gathered around the grill, laughing about something my uncle said. My cousin was blasting country music from a speaker balanced on a cooler. It was just another summer barbecue, except my daughter was missing. We left her at the playground, my mother said, wiping barbecue sauce off her fingers with a napkin. "It'll toughen her up." I stared at her, thinking maybe this was some kind of joke, a bad one. But she wasn't joking. She and my sister were acting like they'd done something noble, like this was some parenting tactic that would win them an award. My sister shrugged and said something about kids these days being too soft. I looked around the yard, expecting someone else to react. Leia was inside helping with drinks. No one else seemed to notice the punch to my gut. My kid was alone at a public park. And my own mother was proud of it. I didn't lose it. I didn't throw a fit or shout across the yard. I just walked away, pulled out my phone, and made one quiet call to their landlord. I didn't give him a speech. I didn't try to justify anything. I just told him that the tenants in Unit 2C had deliberately left a 6-year-old child at a playground alone because they didn't think she belonged in their family. I told him that these were not people anyone should rent to. He said, "I'll take care of it." Then I hung up. Leia and I got in the car. No one stopped us. No one said anything. I don't think they even noticed we left. The playground was 10 minutes away, but it felt like hours. The whole ride there, Leia kept whispering Isla's name like a prayer, as if somehow saying it would protect her until we got there. When we pulled up, we saw her sitting on a swing, her little feet dragging in the mulch, not crying, just there, quiet, still. Leia jumped out first. I followed. Isla looked up and didn't say anything at first. She just stood up and came over. I asked what happened. She said, "They told me I don't have a place in the family, that I should go find where I belong." Then she paused and added, "So, I waited." I still don't know how I didn't scream right then. My heart shattered, but I couldn't show it. We brought her home, gave her some ice cream, and turned on her favorite movie. She fell asleep in the middle of it with her head on Leia's lap. That night, I sat awake in the dark, thinking about all the little moments. The way my mother had always side-eyed Leia, the comments she'd make at holidays about real American families, the way she once said I had watered down our roots. I brushed it off for years, thought she was just ignorant, not dangerous. But this wasn't ignorance. This was cruelty, targeted, and deliberate. All because Leia wasn't born here, because Isla wasn't the kind of granddaughter she wanted. At 8:47 p.m., I got the confirmation text. The eviction notice had been served. That fast, that clean. I didn't tell Leia right away. I just kissed her head and said, "Lesson learned." But the story wasn't over. At 6 a.m. the next morning, I heard a knock at the door. I thought maybe it was a neighbor or some delivery. But when I opened it, there they were, my mother, my sister, and her deadbeat boyfriend. All of them standing on my porch with duffel bags and suitcases like they were checking into a hotel. My mother gave me this practice smile, the same one she used when she used to lie to my teachers about why I missed school. "We'll be staying here for a while," she said as if it was already settled. Behind her, my sister looked bored. Her boyfriend lit a cigarette and leaned against the railing like he'd already moved in. They had nowhere to go, and they thought I would save them. They thought I was still that kid they could guilt trip into cleaning up their messes. They thought wrong. There was this surreal moment when I opened the door and saw them standing there like we were in some twisted version of a sitcom. My mother in her cheap knockoff trench coat, my sister wearing sunglasses before sunrise, and her boyfriend with that same vacant expression he always had, dragging a duffel bag that looked like it hadn't been washed since high school gym class. My mother said it like she was announcing her arrival at a vacation rental. "We'll be staying here for a while." It was 6 o'clock in the morning. They all had bags. My front porch looked like a bus terminal. For a second, I didn't say anything. I just stood there staring at them like maybe I was still dreaming, but I wasn't. And the longer I stared, the more I felt that slow burn of disgust rising up in my chest. Leia came around the corner behind me holding a cup of coffee. She saw them and didn't blink. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. We were on the exact same page. I stepped out just far enough to make sure they couldn't push past me. "No," I said. "You are not staying here." My mother narrowed her eyes like she hadn't heard me correctly. My sister looked genuinely offended. Her boyfriend muttered something and leaned against the porch railing like he had squatter's rights. "What do you mean no?" my sister asked. "You left my daughter alone in a public park," I said. "You don't belong in this house." My mother started in on one of her monologues, something about how I was overreacting, how kids need to learn resilience, and how Isla was probably exaggerating the whole thing because children make up stories. That line made Leia inhale sharply behind me, but still she said nothing. I cut her off. Told her Isla didn't make up anything. That she was 6, not stupid. That she said they told her to go somewhere else because she didn't belong. That she sat on a swing for over 2 hours because she didn't know where else to go. She was never in danger, my mother said. It was broad daylight. You don't get to decide what danger is, I told her. You don't even get to say her name in this house anymore. My sister tried a different angle. Said maybe we were overtired, overwhelmed. That maybe Leia was in my ear too much, that maybe being married to someone who doesn't understand how American families work had made me forget where I came from. That was it. That was the moment. I stepped back inside, closed the door slowly, and locked it. They knocked for 10 more minutes, then cursed, then sat on the steps for a while until the neighbor came out and asked if there was a problem. They left not long after. Isla woke up a little before 8. She didn't mention them once. Just asked if the pancakes were ready and if she could wear her yellow shirt. That crushed me more than anything. She'd already filed it away somewhere in her mind, the part where people she thought loved her just left her behind. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A long text from my sister talking about how hurtful I was being, how they were just trying to help, and how she needed $3,000 to cover a deposit on a new place. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, my mother left a voicemail saying she was staying with a friend for now, but they wouldn't be there long and maybe it was time we all just moved on from that little misunderstanding. I saved the voicemail and deleted the message. Then I turned off notifications from both of them. Leia and I didn't even have to discuss it. We've been through worse, but this was different. This was betrayal, clear and sharp. This was the kind of thing you don't bounce back from. We didn't speak to them the rest of the week, but I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. A week passed without a word. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Leia and I kept our routines, took Isla to school, went to work, ate dinner, and watched old movies at night. But under it all, there was tension. I kept expecting something. A text, a knock, a dramatic voicemail. Something. It finally came in the form of an email. It was from a law office I didn't recognize. The subject line was Housing Dispute Mediation Request. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I opened it and saw my mother's name listed right at the top along with my sister's. They were trying to claim that I had unfairly denied them residence in what they called a family-owned home. Technically, the house was in my name. I bought it 2 years ago. No one else had ever been on the deed. But somehow they were attempting to argue that because I had allowed them to stay there temporarily years ago during a rough patch, that I had established a precedent. Their lawyer wanted an amicable conversation about options for temporary residency or financial compensation for relocation. I sat there reading the email twice, then 3 times. It was unbelievable. They had truly convinced themselves that they were the victims in all this. When I showed it to Leia, she didn't even blink. They don't want to live here, she said. They just want to take something from you. She was right. It was always about control. They didn't want shelter. They wanted access. Still, the fact that they were willing to go legal, that was new. That was escalation. I called my own lawyer, explained the situation. He wasn't worried. They have no legal ground, he said. But they might drag it out just to mess with you. Waste your time and energy. That's what got me. The energy. The attention they would steal from Isla, from Leia, from the life we were trying to build away from them. I told Leia I had an idea. She didn't like it at first, but she knew where I was coming from. I had my lawyer draw up a contract, a loan agreement for $15,000, strict terms, no further contact beyond repayment updates, no visits, no legal claims. Failure to pay within 18 months would trigger a lien on whatever vehicle or property they had by then. It was airtight. I emailed it to them without a word. 2 days later, my sister called. Her voice was syrupy sweet. She said they appreciated the gesture and were willing to move forward and let bygones be bygones. I told her I'd meet them at the lawyer's office. Public, neutral, no surprises. They signed. I wired the money. I watched them walk out of that office, clutching the check like they'd won something. But they hadn't. They didn't realize what they gave up by signing that paper. They were out of our lives now. Or so I thought. I thought giving them the money would be the end of it. I thought I could buy some peace, draw a clear line, and finally move on. That was the deal, $15,000, a signed contract, no contact, no drama. But I underestimated how deeply my mother needed to control the narrative. Being cut off wasn't just an inconvenience for her. It was a humiliation. And humiliation in her world had to be answered. It started slow. A few relatives calling me, acting like they were just checking in. But the questions weren't innocent. One of my uncles asked if I'd been feeling okay mentally. Said he'd heard I'd been really stressed lately. Then another cousin messaged Leia saying that family's hard sometimes and that maybe we should all just forgive and forget. We hadn't even told anyone what happened, but someone had. My mother. She was on the phone with relatives every day telling them how we kicked her out on the street, how we chose money over blood, how we forced her to take a payout like we were settling a lawsuit. She left out the part where she left my daughter alone on a public swing set for 2 hours. That part didn't fit the story she wanted to tell. They reinvented themselves almost overnight. My sister got a receptionist job at a local dental office, same one where she used to date the dentist, which is probably how she got in. My mother started working at a boutique downtown and posted daily photos of herself folding scarves and writing captions like, "Starting over isn't weakness, it's strength." Her boyfriend picked up a job at a car lot and started wearing sunglasses indoors like he'd become some kind of mogul. And everywhere they went, they talked, to family, to neighbors, even to people at church. My aunt told me they stood up during some prayer group and asked for support because their son abandoned them after taking everything. She cried, said they were surviving in spite of betrayal. They didn't want money anymore. They wanted sympathy. They wanted attention. They wanted everyone else to believe they were the ones who had been wronged. The first time I ran into them in public was at a cousin's baby shower. I was holding Isla's hand when we walked in. We weren't 2 steps into the room before I saw my sister across the patio, whispering to someone and shooting glances in my direction. My mother wore this smug smile and stood just a little straighter when people looked at her. I didn't say anything. I didn't confront anyone, but I noticed how some relatives barely spoke to us, how Leah got those looks, the quiet, polite kind that weren't really polite at all. One of my cousins even said, "You two holding up all right?" In that tone people use when they already believe the worst about you. They kept spinning their version of the story. One where we were heartless, elitist, cold. One where they had lost everything and built it back with nothing but grit and faith. The worst part was Isla picking up on it. She didn't know the details, but she knew something was off. She asked why Grandma didn't call anymore, why people talked to us differently. And I had to sit there trying to explain to a 6-year-old that sometimes adults behave worse than children. Leah stayed calm, but I could tell it was wearing on her. It was one thing to protect our daughter from direct harm. It was another to protect her from the quiet, corrosive kind, the gossip, the shame, the way people look at you when they think they know something they don't. I kept waiting for it to end, for them to get bored or distracted or find someone else to manipulate. But it wasn't ending. And that meant I had to do something next. 3 months. That's how long I gave them. 3 months of watching them parade around town, acting like they triumphed. Facebook posts about new beginnings, inspirational quotes about betrayal and resilience. My sister even gave some half-baked interview on a local podcast about starting over after toxic family dynamics. I couldn't make this up if I tried. They hadn't paid a dime of the loan, and I'd had enough. The tipping point came when Isla came home from school quieter than usual. After dinner, she asked if Grandma was mad at us because someone at school said we kicked her out and made her poor. She's 6. She shouldn't even be forming those kinds of sentences. And she definitely shouldn't be worried about who owes whom money in the family. I didn't say much to Leah that night. I just walked to the garage, pulled out the file with the signed agreement, and placed it on the table like a chess piece. She looked at it, nodded, and said, "Do it." I made the call the next morning. I didn't get far into the conversation before my sister started laughing. Not a chuckle, a full laugh, like I just told her I was applying to be Santa Claus. She said I was pathetic, obsessed, and that no one sues their own mother unless they're mentally unwell. I said, $15,000, one payment. End of story. She said, "Fine, you'll get what's coming to you then," hung up. Sunday evening, just after sunset, the doorbell rang. I opened it to see the whole trio standing there, my mother, my sister, and the boyfriend. All of them looking smug, like they had rehearsed this moment. My mother had lipstick on like this was an event. My sister was holding her phone like she was recording, just in case I reacted. My mother handed me a box. It was a battered cardboard thing, stained on the corners like it had been in someone's attic for a decade. She didn't even make eye contact. Just said, "We've decided to return what we owe. This should cover it." They turned around and walked down the steps. I didn't even open the box right away. Leah came into the hallway, saw it, and raised an eyebrow. "You want to wait until Isla's asleep?" she asked. I nodded. Later, when the house was quiet, we opened it on the kitchen table. Inside were 3 things: a crumpled envelope with $37 in mixed bills, mostly singles. One of the bills had pen scribbles on it, a faded photo from 2003, all of us smiling at a lake. In a cracked plastic frame, there was a sticky note on the glass that read, "In case you forget who you really are," and finally, a dollar store plastic trophy that said, "Number 1 son," duct taped to a half-used container of glitter slime from a kid's craft set. That was their idea of a repayment, a performance, a punchline. Leah didn't speak. She just picked up the contract and laid it next to the photo. I stared at the box for a long time, feeling nothing at first. Then slowly, this cold certainty started to settle in. This wasn't about money. This was about power, and they were daring me to escalate, thinking I'd flinch. I didn't. The next morning, I contacted my lawyer. We began the formal process of suing to enforce the loan contract, plus late penalties, plus damages. That same day, I also made a quiet call to a relative who still liked me enough to talk honestly. I wanted to know exactly what my parents were saying, what they were doing, what else they had in motion. What he told me stunned me. They weren't just playing the victim. They were planning to crash Isla's birthday. I hadn't told Isla much about the party. She just knew her friends were coming. There'd be cake, and we were renting one of those inflatable obstacle courses. It was going to be her first birthday since the fallout. Her first birthday without Grandma or Auntie Jess. Leia and I didn't plan to tell her why. She didn't need that yet. She just needed balloons and presents and people who loved her. But 2 days before the party, my cousin called. He sounded hesitant, which was already strange. He said, "You might want to know. Your mom's been telling people she's coming to Isla's party. She said you invited her, but you wanted it to be a surprise for Leia." A surprise? I nearly laughed, but it came out cold. Apparently, they had been calling relatives, the ones still neutral or afraid to pick a side, and telling them they'd be attending. They said they had to be there for Isla. No matter how we felt, they wanted to make a scene, but hide it under the banner of family unity. Leia and I looked at each other across the kitchen table. "They are not showing up for her," she said. "They are showing up for themselves." We moved quickly. We changed the venue, booked a private room at a kids' activity center under Leia's maiden name. The guest list was confirmed with phone calls, not invites. We added a staff person at the entrance with a list of names and a simple instruction: if anyone shows up uninvited, security would handle it. The party was perfect. Isla laughed harder than I'd seen in months. She got a toy vet kit and a pink scooter. Her classmates painted her birthday banner by hand. She beamed through the whole day, unaware of the shadow that had almost landed over it. But they weren't done. That evening, after the party, we got home to find something strange. A large manila envelope was sticking out of our mailbox. No stamps, no postmark, hand-delivered. Inside was a letter, not typed, handwritten in my mother's unmistakable cursive. It started normal enough, talking about how she missed her granddaughter and how she hoped one day we could stop poisoning Isla's mind against her. Then it got strange. She wrote, "You don't know what you've done. There are things you don't understand about this family. Things I've protected you from for years." It felt like a veiled threat or a desperate move to regain control. Attached to the letter was a photo, an old one, not of Isla, but of me. Me as a teenager, standing outside the house I grew up in, beside a car I didn't remember. On the back of the photo was a date and one line: "Ask your father what happened that night. If he'll tell you." I sat there holding the photo, wondering how deep this could really go. This whole war, it wasn't just about Isla. It wasn't just about Leia. This was about something older, something buried. I looked at Leia and said, "I don't think they're done." She said, "Then neither are we." We never heard from them again. Not directly. They never showed up in person after that. No more boxes. No more Facebook posts about betrayal. Just silence. But I kept that photo. And I still haven't asked my father. Not yet. It had been quiet. Almost too quiet. No texts, no emails, no weird packages. Leia and I both thought maybe it was really over this time. Maybe they had finally realized there was nothing left to manipulate. The lawsuit was in motion, and they missed every deadline to respond. It felt like we were finally turning the page. Then last Thursday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered thinking it might be the school or something work-related. But the voice on the other end said, "Mr. Harding, this is Officer Mendez from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. We're calling regarding a welfare check initiated from your mother's last known address. We need you to confirm some family details." I sat down. Apparently, someone had called the sheriff's office anonymously, saying that my mother and sister hadn't been seen in days. The place they were renting had been vacated. No notice, no forwarding address, mail piling up. Even the car was gone. The officer asked if I had any idea where they might be. I said, no, I wasn't lying. Later that day, I went by the place just to see for myself. The building manager recognized me from back when I dropped off groceries during one of their fake emergencies. He told me they'd skipped out on rent, left behind a few boxes. One of them had my name written on the side in red marker. I took it. I opened it in my garage later that night. Inside were random things: a cracked mug, an old winter scarf, some printed out emails between me and my sister, and a folder labeled Legal Options, Brian. And at the bottom, another photo. Not of me, not of Isla. This one was of a man I didn't recognize in a suit shaking hands with my mother. The photo was grainy, probably printed from an old email attachment, but it was dated, same year as the last one, same month. There was no note this time, just a flash drive taped to the back of the photo. I haven't plugged it in yet, but I will. And something tells me this isn't about money anymore. I didn't plug in the flash drive right away. It sat on my desk for 2 days while I focused on work and spent time with Isla. She had started drawing little comics and wanted to show me every new page. Leia and I went out for coffee one morning while Isla was at school, something we hadn't done in weeks. Life felt for a moment like it was stabilizing, like we were just another family doing normal things. I almost forgot the box was there. But on the third night, after everyone went to bed, I picked it up and finally plugged it in.